Welcome to the Vernon Hills Update. The update offers information about a variety of village services. You'll meet a few of your neighbors and you'll find out about upcoming events. On today's show, we'll report on the July rain and floods and the impact they had on the village, including tips to mitigate damage in the future. We'll find out about this year's Public Works Open House planned for Wednesday, August 30th from 4 to 7 p.m. We'll touch base with Clark Environmental to review the village's mosquito abatement program, including the procedures in place to deal with post-flood mosquitoes. We'll introduce Vernon Hills' new Tobacco 21 ordinance, which raises the legal age to buy tobacco and tobacco-related products to 21 here in Vernon Hills. We'll learn about trends and concerns driving Tobacco 21 ordinances around our area, including unrecognized dangers with tobacco technologies such as e-cigarettes and Juuls. And we'll look ahead to this year's law enforcement exhibition, which will be held September 9th and 10th at Hawthorne Mall. And we'll find out what's on tap for this year's Little Bear Rib Fest, planned for August 18th and 19th at Century Park. Thank you for tuning into the Vernon Hills Update.
We are here at the Vernon Hills Village Hall to talk about those July rains and the floodwaters we had. We're with Village Engineer and Public Works Director David Brown, and you and your crews did a great job getting us through those mid-July water episodes, but it was quite the thing. Now, was that what you would call a 100-year episode?
Well, I think my profession struggles in terms of the use of the word 100-year storm because they seem to pop up every 3 or 4 years. So really what we like to use is it's really probability, right? It's one chance in 100 that size event storm will happen within any given year. So it's really a 1% probability storm.
Okay, that makes more sense than the 100-year because we have had some pretty big storms. But this last one, that was a big one, and I know you guys prepped for it, but and you've been planning for things like that with your stormwater management. But this was a big one, and how'd we do?
Yeah, we fared very well. We're blessed in a couple of fashions. We're not a river town. We're a newer community. The older section of town was, we were incorporated in 1958. So some of the struggles that our neighbors had, we did not have. Stormwater management, the principles, they do work and they did serve us very well. I think the planning of our town worked very well. There's some videos that were shot via drone of the park district area, the CV ditch. So really those are park areas. They were planned for water, and when it's not raining they can be used for recreational uses. But the homes were elevated and protected, and so we fared very well. Where we would recommend some assistance that self-help for residents is really the flooding that was not over land, that it went into their houses in that fashion, but it was really due to a power failure or a sump pump failure. So lesson learned from the storm, we would encourage any resident to do some pre-planning, check your sump pump. If you don't have a battery backup or another source that doesn't rely on Commonwealth Edison power, then you really should look at doing that. And if there's questions on that, by all means, I'm available, my staff's available to help support them on that.
Well, and hopefully going through that, people all got those things replaced, because I heard there was a real run at Home Depot and every place as people were getting those backups to go when the power went out. So, and with the ground being saturated like it is, we're not exactly out of the woods yet.
We are not out of the woods, and just overnight we had another storm, so I'm anticipating we will fare very well. I live in Gurnee. I feel for some of my neighbors that are up against the Des Plaines River, that have sandbagged, people who are in the Fox Lake area. This rain will impact them.
Well, and to back up again, you talked about the CV. Really, even though we're not a river town, we're not a Lake Michigan town, there's a lot of water that has to move through our town from one place to the other. We're through the CV, and you've got different channels, like you've got something that cuts from the schools over in Aspen over to in behind Countryside Fire. You've got waterways that you've kind of prepared and cleaned up and made available, and a lot of water has to go through.
Yeah, so That's called a watershed, and so where the rain falls and it's tributary within the Des Plaines River, it drains typically first to the Seavey Ditch, the majority of our town. That's the spine that goes through the village, the waterway, and then it connects to the Indian Creek, which goes to the Des Plaines River. Des Plaines River is really on the east side of our town, so we're not as impacted by that area, but there is a lot of water that falls in other municipalities that are the headwaters that flow through our village. And so some of the planning that we did, starting in Gregg's Landing, you have Lake Charles, Big and Little Bear Lake, and great green belts through there. When you get south of 60, the Seavey Ditch area does have a green belt to either side too. And so as part of the proper planning of our village, those areas were protected and housing and buildings were constructed outside of those areas.
So when you say green belt, that's the green areas like the parks and empty spaces that are there just for these big times of rain, so that's where the water's supposed to go.
Very well put.
Okay.
Very well put.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all that planning you guys have done, and thank you for, I know the guys were running around making sure the storm sewers were open and everything else, so.
It was a very interesting challenge because we had our summer celebration event that's so important to our community, and we were not certain looking at Wednesday because we had water that overtopped the banks along Big and Little Bear Lake. It was well under our tent areas, and we were confident looking at the forecast, etc., that yes, on Thursday we would still have the fireworks, the water did recede, and we were able to act on our cleanup operations and still have that event. So we were fortunate.
Well, thank you. Thank your crews for all they did. Those are long hours, but we appreciate it. And it's a good time, like you said, to prepare with your sump pump, your backup. It's also a good time just to think about emergency planning. And I know there's information on, you can go to FEMA. Lake County has a flood website. They've got other preparation websites. So I know you guys like people to just be ready, whether it's for rain, flooding, snow. We'll be talking about that at some point. Whatever it is, maybe use this as a time to kind of get your emergency preparedness plan in order with everybody. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to plan ahead, so you're not reacting to these situations and you know what you're up against.
You guys have a wealth of information over there, so thank you for that. Thank you for all you do. And in fact, it's a great time to come and see what Public Works guys are up to and gals. Some of the work you do, some of the equipment you use, some of the techniques you have, because you've got open house coming up on Wednesday, August 30th from 4 to 7 p.m. over at the Public Works facility at 490 Greenleaf Drive.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect opportunity for residents to come and see some of our operations, Lake County Public Works operations. Clark Mosquito Abatement will have their helicopter here again. Swelco and some of the other supporting agencies and what they do. I think the families enjoy it, the kids have a great time. They get to see the different equipment that we have. We have some games and prizes and food, and it's really a great occasion.
And it's free.
And more importantly, it's free.
So it's free. So it's fun for the kids. They get to ride around the street sweep or whatever they get to do, touch the trucks, be in there. And it's good for the parents too, because if they do have questions, that's a good time to talk to you and your staff. You have very knowledgeable people over there, and people can kind of pick their brains. So it's a great time to all be together and celebrate all that you're doing over there.
Yeah, so please come August 30th, show up, and we'd love to have you.
Thank you. Well, we're getting to that time of year when the mosquitoes were always kind of a problem. And now after the rains we've had, the buzz is even a little more urgent. So we're talking here with George Ballas of Clark. They're the folks that take care of mosquito abatement and some of the other environmental things around town. And George, if anybody's been reading about floods and mosquitoes, you're like the rock star entomologist. That's kind of exciting.
Well, it's just sometimes you have infamy that you don't really want or need.
When it comes to mosquitoes, and when we're taping this, we have just finished off those historic floods of mid-July. And so I'm thinking that means mosquitoes aren't going to be kind to us right now.
Well, they're going to be quite aggressive coming off the water, the rains that we received 2 weeks ago here. And what we're going to see is larger numbers of mosquitoes, floodwater variety that come from longer distances coming into the village to be pests during that time.
Well, and usually when we'd be talking to you about this time of year, there are two different kind of mosquitoes. You said the floodwater, and then what was the other kind?
They're the Culex or northern house mosquitoes. So we have 38 different actual types, but most of them either fall into two categories: stagnant water, which is what we normally see at this time when the temperatures rise and there's not a lot of rainfall, and then the floodwater variety, which is usually meant for earlier in the season, but this year with the heavy rains, it's going to change up.
Okay. So we're just going to have mosquitoes. That's how it's going to be. So, but you guys are working on that. Can you talk about what you guys do for not only Vernon Hills? You go to a lot of municipalities, and you have kind of a life cycle process that you do. Can you explain that to everybody?
Yeah, so the mosquito has 4 life cycle stages: the egg, which is laid near or on water; the larval stage, which is where we do most of our control work; the pupa stage, which is kind of like the cocoon; and then the adult, which most people are familiar with. The females are the ones that take blood meals so that they have enough nutrients to lay eggs. A lot of the work that we do is actually in that larval stage. So we'll actually treat either by hand, small bodies of water, power backpack, and in some larger areas actually by helicopter. So those have been ongoing since the flood has occurred. And then in addition to that, we do adult mosquito control, and that will be ongoing starting actually right after the flood right now and moving for the next several weeks to try and knock down those populations that are coming off the water.
What kind of things are we going to see? I know I've seen your bikes going through, but that's if somebody hasn't seen that before, can you explain that?
Yeah, the bikes actually treat the storm drains, and there's several thousand of them. Those are areas that contain standing water, and the Culex mosquitoes, like the northern house mosquitoes, like to breed in those areas. And so we'll be treating those, and we treat those on an ongoing monthly basis throughout the entire year.
And if it's needed, do you anticipate coming through? Sometimes we'll see those early evening. We'll hear the trucks go through, and you can get, alerted to that. But is that still something on the process?
Yeah, we'll start to see that on a more regular basis once we see the emergence of the large floodwater broods that are going to be coming off our hatches.
So that's for the adults.
That's going to be for the adult mosquitoes, and we're going to see a little bit more adult mosquito control moving forward because of the heavy rains that we experienced.
So we're talking. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be exciting out there with all the mosquitoes. What is the concern more than annoyance? Is we talk about diseases and stuff like that. So can you give us the update on how healthy the mosquitoes have been and what kind of danger they might pose?
Right now, the unique situation that we've had because of the amount of rainfall is that we haven't seen a lot of West Nile virus positive mosquito samples. Like we have not. And so the problem with heavy rainfalls like this and the subsequent rains that we've received is small pools sometimes will lead to that northern house mosquito start to breeding in there very rapidly if our temperatures start to rise. So we don't want to say that there is no risk of West Nile virus because there could be an escalated risk following the floodwaters. But the same things that we do for the floodwater mosquitoes, we do for the West Nile virus situations, which is reduce standing water around your homes, especially after the rains, lots of buckets, artificial containers, tip and toss those, or recycle those containers, as well as wearing repellents are very important, whether it be nuisance or quality of life mosquitoes or disease-carrying mosquitoes.
Okay, so that's what your folks do. You do not hesitate to use products, and I know you've always said, I'm a dad. We use them at home, so there's the good outweighs the bad. So can you remind people what are some of the things we should look for in a repellent, and how often are you supposed to put that on?
Well, the repellents are actually there's 4 different formulations that the Centers for Disease Control recommends. There's the DEET-based repellents, which is this right here, a picaridin-based repellent, an oil of lemon eucalyptus repellent, or an IR35 repellent, and that comes right into the active ingredients area. Okay. The percentage of spray, so this is a 7% DEET spray. So this will last probably about an hour. So if you're going out for just a small barbecue, things of that sort, the larger the percentage, the longer that it works, not the more effective it works. So if you have 100% DEET, that doesn't mean it's more effective, it just means that it's going to last longer. So wearing repellents is very important. So if you're out during the day and mosquitoes are active, you're in a heavily wooded area, you need to wear repellent during that time. Or if you're out during the evenings and mosquitoes are active, that's when you should be wearing it.
Well, we used to say it's morning and evening, but we're probably going to just see them a little bit all over.
Yeah, especially in heavily wooded areas or water that was situated for a long period of time, we may see larger broods or emergences, hatches coming off of those areas, and that's where we'll see more mosquitoes.
Okay, so that's where you want the repellents all the time. And I know you said there's also other things you can do. You can, like if you're out on your porch, you can put a fan out there, and sometimes they can't fly against that wind as well.
They don't fly very well against wind, so just an oscillating fan will work very effectively in reducing your mosquitoes. But just getting rid of any water around your home is the most important component of this that a homeowner can take, and then wearing repellents are really the 2 steps that they can
And I know you showed us before, like tip and toss, even like the little saucer under a pot, if it has a little standing water, you'll find mosquitoes in there.
Yeah, mosquitoes like to breed in anywhere where there's water, so the lowest common denominator that they have is the water. So if we can reduce that around the house, you reduce your mosquito populations.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I know you've got information on your website. The Clark website has a lot of information about, you know, what you do, how you do it, about mosquitoes and all those things. The CDC has a lot of information if people want to learn more. But the most important thing, like you said, tip and toss and wear a repellent, and just we'll get through it.
That's correct. And we do have a new email address called hotmail@clarke.com. And anyone who has any stagnant water that will stay for any 3 to 5 days after rainfalls, they can email us at that with their address, name, and telephone number, and then we'll go out and actually inspect that site, see if it's breeding, and treat it if necessary, and there's no additional cost to the residents.
So if it's on my own personal property, you'll do that?
Yeah, so if it's on your personal property and you have some type of drainage issue, you can email right there, and we'll have someone come out and check that.
Excellent. That's an excellent service. Thank you very much. And thank you to all you guys that are out there and working on our behalf. We appreciate it. And hopefully next year you won't have to be such a rock star entomologist. But thanks for taking care of us this year.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are at the Vernon Hills Police Station to talk about a new ordinance that went in effect in Vernon Hills on August 1st called Tobacco 21. And we're here with one of Vernon Hills' finest, Officer Ryan Yeager. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us about this.
Lynn. Not a problem.
And it's always good to meet somebody from the force, because we know who's out here taking care of us. So it's good to meet you, Ryan.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
And Officer Yeager, let's talk about Tobacco 21. It kind of is what it sounds like, but can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. So Tobacco 21 is a new ordinance that Vernon Hills is enforcing. You simply have to be 21 years of age to buy tobacco products. We've informed all our retail establishments, and they will not sell tobacco products to you unless you're 21 or over.
So just like the alcohol, you have to show an ID to show you're over 21 to get the product here in town.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, now the difference with Tobacco 21 and the alcohol ordinance is Vernon Hills is one of a few towns around. There are a few towns. It's kind of building steam. There's a lot more towns that are getting on this Tobacco 21 ordinance. So you might see it in Lincolnshire, Deerfield, but this is new for Vernon Hills, and you're just starting the enforcement.
Yep. It'll be enforced it's going to be enforced in August. Okay. So that's when the new local ordinance will take place.
And I know right now the focus is on the retailers, and I think we heard from Chief Crease had said there's like 15 retailers in town that sell tobacco and tobacco related. And let's remind people too, while smoking is going down, you don't see a lot of cigarette smoking. This also relates to tobacco-related products. So that's things like e-cigarettes and other.
E-cigarettes, vaping pens, anything of that nature. So chew, anything like that. So.
Okay, so tobacco-related products here in Vernon Hills, starting August 1st, 21 to buy and to sell too. So it's 21 and up. So
21 and up.
Okay.
That's right.
Straightforward. If you've got questions, I know you can call over here, and there's somebody that'll help you with that too. So.
Absolutely. So just dial the number at the bottom, and if you have any questions or concerns.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you for all you and everybody at the police force does for us. And remember, new ordinance, Tobacco 21. It's here in Vernon Hills. So we'll learn more about in the next segment about why it's important and what you should be looking for too, so you understand the health concerns that we've got for you all. But for now, Tobacco 21 here in Vernon Hills, August 1st. Thank you, Officer Yeager.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On July 5th, the Village Board passed an ordinance known as the Tobacco 21 Ordinance, which means that the 15 retailers who sell tobacco and tobacco-related type products will no longer be able to sell them to anyone under the age of 21. It'll be like alcohol and liquor. So now tobacco and tobacco-related products will be in that same class starting August 1st in Vernon Hills. Some of the groups that were before the Village Board to talk about this included the schools, Lake County Health Department, some students from the area, as well as representatives of a group called Stand Strong Coalition. Today we're with Jamie Epstein, who is the executive director of Stand Strong Coalition, to help educate us all about this ordinance, what it's trying to do in our community and other communities that have it, as well as teach us a little bit about the new tobacco technology that's out there that a lot of us aren't aware of, and we aren't aware of the dangers. And that's one of the things that Tobacco 21 is really trying to target. So that's a long, complicated introduction to you, Jamie, but thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. I know
Thanks
you're
for having
passionate.
me, yes.
You're passionate about this. You have a lot of knowledge to share with us. Let's start with Stand Strong Coalition. You work with young people. Can you tell us a little bit about what your goal is?
Sure. Stand Strong is a community coalition. We're dedicated to the prevention of underage drinking and drug use for the youth in our community. We have federal funding from the Office of National Drug Control Policy to do this work. We have focused our work on the students in Stevenson High School and its feeder middle schools, but as we know, plenty of kids in Vernon Hills do go to Stevenson High School, including my kids, so I'm also a parent here. We focused our work on underage drinking, marijuana, and prescription drug use. However, we started noticing this uptick in the vaping and the e-cigarette use. And also we know that kids can vape marijuana in these products. So our attention got turned towards that, and so we added that to our action plan as well.
Well, and when we talk about that, that's why we said tobacco and tobacco-related products, because it's kind of a bigger industry than we're aware of. So when we talk about Tobacco 21, one of the things that people will say is, well, you can get anything anywhere, so why make another rule? But one of the things you guys talked about is, because you are working with the feeder schools into the high schools, when you talk about everything, you talk about social distance. So can we talk a little bit about how the rule of raising the age for any kind of use of something that's harmful, how it helps to have that social distance, and what the age of 21 does for that.
Exactly. So there are two reasons really to make an increase in the age. One is to decrease access. If you decrease access, if kids can't get a substance, the use is going to be a lot less, right? So one of the things we've noticed about the vaping and the e-cigarettes that concerned me is that we're seeing it in middle school use. And so 12, 13-year-olds are reporting using it or knowing someone who has used it. And it's much easier for a 12 and 13-year-old to know somebody who is 18 than it is for them to find someone who is 21.
Right, because 18-year-olds are still in school, they're still in the neighborhood, they're still living in the homes.
Exactly, brothers and sisters, etc. So that is one of the reasons to increase something to 21. Another reason in general is we know now that the teen brain does not stop growing until age 24 and 25. And you never want to enter anything, any substance into that process. Just like when we're pregnant with our babies, the brain is growing, so we're told not to introduce alcohol or drugs into that because of that growth period. The same with teenage years. It's the last time their brains grow. And we do not want to introduce anything during this time that could change that development, and perhaps forever. We don't want to get that brain used to something that's addicting, which we know nicotine in particular is very addicting.
Well, and let's talk about the industry, because the stats, you know, all these things came out that big tobacco, they knew if they could get kids under age 18 hooked on tobacco, get them to try it, they probably had a user for life. So their marketing scheme back in the day for using cigarettes was to target the kids, because if you target the kids, they're addicted for life and you have a lifelong user. You're seeing the same sorts of marketing go now with these e-cigarettes and these jewels and all these other things in this new tobacco technology. They're using that same kind of thing.
Same exact, you know, playbook, as they say. There are cartoons like Joe Camel. There are cartoons associated with some of these products. They have magazine ads that show the glamour and the beauty, and they have sponsor concerts, athletic events. So they're using their same playbook, really, that they used 50 years ago.
And they can, because they're kind of not on the radar yet. So they're largely unregulated. So they don't have, like, you can't see a cigarette commercial on TV, but these other things really don't have the same level of regulation.
Exactly.
And also they don't, because they're not regulated, I understand that you can't pick up a package and really know what's in some of these materials that you're ingesting, but when they're studied, it's not a good thing.
Right. I've heard that, one, on your advertising point, 7 out of 10 teens have been exposed to e-cigarette marketing, so that's a lot of our youth that are being exposed probably on a day-to-day basis to these products. Secondly, What did
The stuff that's in it, they don't list
right,
what's
sorry.
in there.
So right,
so you're sort of a secret.
Right, they're not regulated, and as well, they've had studies where they are testing ones that say there's no nicotine in them, and there is nicotine in them, and they don't list all of the chemicals. So yes, you are right that because they aren't regulated, we don't really know what's in them.
Well, and you had shared some statistics that not just like the fact that there's nicotine in there and people using them think, well, I'm not going to get hooked because there's no nicotine.
Right.
There is nicotine.
In
That's
many
the
of them,
addictive.
yes.
That's the addictive substance.
Exactly.
That's why they don't want you to have tobacco. But the ingredients that you find, like for instance, a lot of them have a liquid in them that has to heat up. It's not water. It's glycerin.
Right. Exactly.
Which isn't to be inhaled into your lungs.
Well, the flavorings that are in them, so we know there's cotton candy, Skittle flavoring, all of these flavorings that they've studied, they have, we found 65 chemicals in this liquid that many of the kids do think is just water.
Flavored water.
They've actually done studies and asked kids, what's in this? And 15% say, I don't know. And 65, I believe, % say just flavoring. Well, let's look at that flavoring. And studies are starting to come out where they've looked at those 65 chemicals. 9 of them are carcinogens, known carcinogens. 26 of them are on the FDA list of harmful substances or potentially harmful substances. So cancer takes 15, 20 years to start showing in public, in numbers. So we don't know for sure, but it doesn't look good.
Right. It doesn't look good, but they're not telling you that because they don't even have to
They
tell
don't
you
even
that.
have
There's
to
no
yet, no.
warnings. Like you pick up a pack of cigarette, big warnings.
Right.
That's not the case here, and they don't even have to tell you what's in it, so you only get this when a scientist wants to pick one up and study the stuff.
That's right. That's right.
But it tastes good, and it doesn't taste like it's dangerous.
Right. And several of them do not contain nicotine. And so kids started thinking they all don't contain nicotine. And all of a sudden what's become very popular, and I brought in one with me today, is this Juul product. Such a cool device here, right? Looks like a USB report, so cool. All Juuls do contain nicotine. And many kids have no idea of that. And many parents have no idea of that. And nicotine, again, because of the growing teen brain, you do not want to add a substance that is that addicting. Nicotine has been shown to be as addicting as heroin in some studies. So you just don't want your kids' developing brain to become addicted and to be exposed to nicotine.
Well, and when you look at this, it does look like a USB thumb drive. So you could see that plugged into a laptop or something. You'd be like, oh, you're charging it up to go to school.
Right.
So you don't even know what it is.
No.
And teachers don't necessarily
That's
know
right.
what it is. Because I've heard that sometimes they're even in the school. And
Right. I've heard both
the
reports.
awareness is not, this is new on the radar. It's not something
Absolutely.
people have seen. It's compact. It's fairly inexpensive. It's very accessible. And just by having the legal limit up to 21 here in town, that at least starts the conversation about what's going on.
Right.
Well, and you see things like that. All of them, some of them are very expensive. And some of them people will know, like, you know, the vaping pens and things, you can go into the stores and do
Right.
that sort of thing. And I know a lot of people, we've heard adults say, well, I use them to try to get, to remove myself from cigarette use.
Right.
And some of them you probably can if you know what's in them and it's not nicotine. But you're finding actually the trend is the other way, that you're
With
finding
youth,
the
yeah.
use has been so much with the young people, and then it becomes a gateway to just other things.
That's right. So youth are reporting that they're using it to experiment. 60% of them say, I'm just doing it to experiment. 35% say, I'm just doing it because it tastes good. The maximum we got was 12th graders reported, 9% of them reported I'm using it to try to cut down on cigarettes. So the use is actually has nothing to do with trying to get off tobacco products,
It's
right?
bringing it on.
Right, and we know that teens that do use e-cigarettes are 4 times more likely to smoke regular cigarettes 6 months from the time that the survey was asked. So if your child is using e-cigarettes, they are 4 times more likely to try and use tobacco products.
Well, and you might say, well, you know, my kid's very smart, they're a top athlete, they're a great student. They would know better, but nobody knows better.
Right.
And the numbers show that so many kids are experimenting or using. That's what
right.
you're seeing, that even self-reported data, the numbers are climbing
Right.
tremendously over
Right.
the last couple of years.
And a survey from the high school kids, one of the comments I remember was that kids that you would never think are using them are using them.
Because it
whatever
tastes
reason.
good. It seems like you're just inhaling flavor.
Right, and they all
But
think
you're
it's
not.
harmless.
Yeah.
15% of seniors said that these things are harmless.
Well, and like you said, it's unregulated, untested. We're charting new territory. So 15 years from now, we might look back and be
Absolutely.
horrified at
Right.
what happened. But that's why this is the time to kind of be educated and take a stand, because it is a
That's
new
right.
industry. And my understanding too is some of this new industry is actually old industry in that it's like old big tobacco
Right.
with a new business plan and
Right.
a new opportunity
Right.
for sales.
Yes, I did see that Philip Morris owns some e-cigarette companies.
Yeah, so there you go.
Right.
And it doesn't look like what we expect. We might be horrified if we found, a pack of cigarettes. You don't need to do that.
Right.
But this doesn't look the same, so we have to just be aware.
Right,
So.
and kids somehow feel that way. I asked some kids about what's so interesting about this, and they tell me how they see on Snapchat and Instagram all these cool circles you can blow from them, and the smoke rings that our grandmas might have, blown to us from cigarettes. And I actually asked them, would it be cool if somebody was smoking a cigarette and blew those smoke rings? No, that would be disgusting. So they don't get it, that it's the same thing. And so we have to get ahead of this industry this time and not be fooled again.
Yeah, they fooled us the
Yes.
last time, and they're trying to fool us again.
Right.
So, well, and that's where when the village trustees talked about all this, and when all these people came before the board to talk about this, it wasn't so much about punishment, but education was the key
Absolutely.
to get ahead of this. That we all need to be educated. And I know other communities are doing the same thing. They're having the same kind of rules to try to create social distance, try to create this,
Right.
and hopefully we can reverse this trend. Because right now the trend is like every year you have double the
Doubled it,
usage
yes.
all the way down to middle school.
Right.
That's really
and that's
scary.
concerning, right, that they're really young brains,
Really
being
young brains
exposed to this.
getting addicted, and it's not
Right.
helpful. So we got
And that's how we changed Smoke-Free Illinois, as you know, right? So we didn't change it at the state level. We went around to different villages, such as Vernon Hills, which was ahead of the game there, and we passed Smoke-Free Illinois in all of these villages, or Smoke-Free Vernon Hills, Smoke-Free Highland Park, and then the state says, hey, maybe this is what
this is
people
an
want.
easy one we can do,
Right.
and yeah, we can get it done.
Right,
So.
so that's the same thing that we're trying to do here as well.
And
in
that
addition.
changed the trend of usage a lot too, because once you couldn't smoke in a public building, people just it helped reverse the trend.
Absolutely. They say that the reason we've been so successful in combating tobacco use is because of all the policy changes that we've
It's just
instituted.
harder.
Right.
Yeah, so if it's just going to be this hard, I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely.
Well, and I know the state had had been a tobacco 21 and tobacco related 21 that came into Springfield, but Springfield had a lot in there. Nothing got done.
Right.
Lake County, I understand Lake County Health is really pushing for it. So Lake County probably will have a tobacco 21 type ordinance for the unincorporated Lake County.
Right.
And there's other towns that have done this, Highland Park, Deerfield, Lincolnshire,
Right.
So other towns have done this, and we're just
And the
trying
city
to-
of Chicago.
And the city of
Yeah,
Chicago.
right.
So it's not unusual. It's not, rules like that don't put an end to things, but it does make it more difficult, and it does start the conversation. That's what we need to do here
That's
today.
right.
Well, thank you for taking the time. There's so much people can learn, and,
Right.
and it's such a complicated topic. I know you have information on your Stand Strong Coalition website.
Yes, we do.
You're available. I know if somebody wanted to talk, you go around and
Sure.
you talk to parent groups, correct?
Absolutely, right.
Okay, so Jamie Epstein, she's available to you if that's something you want to do. Lake County has a couple things. You've got the Lake County Underage Drinking and Drug Prevention Task Force. You've got Lake County Yes Coalition. Even you can go online to the Center for Disease Control, and you can search around and learn more about things like Juuls and vaping and e-cigarettes and what the equipment looks like and the studies. So it's important that we just stay aware, so we're
Right.
not fooled by, like we were by big
That's
tobacco
right,
for so
right.
many years. So, well, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your message. And remember, if you want to learn more, just educate yourself or check with Jamie. She's got a lot of information. She can educate us all. So thank you for your effort. Thank you for your work.
Thanks so much for having me.
We are at Hawthorne Mall. I'm with Kim Christensen of the Vernon Hills Police Department, and we're not here to shop.
No.
Well, we could be here to shop, but
can when we're done.
yeah, when we're done. We're here to talk about something that's been going on for a lot of years. It's the Law Enforcement Exhibition. I have trouble saying that word, exhibition, on Saturday, Sunday, September 9th and 10th over here. So let's talk about that. You've been doing this a long time.
This is our 13th law enforcement exhibition. It started in 2005. Every year, it's a wonderful event every year. Attracts a lot of people, get a lot of interest from the community, a lot of interest from outside the community. Roughly this year so far, I'm expecting about 20, at least 20, based on the information I've received thus far. We got some time to go, but I'm expecting at least 20 law enforcement or law enforcement related agencies.
Yeah, it's not just Vernon Hills, it's the sheriffs and it's other local places.
Local agencies, the county agency, things like that. Any official government law enforcement, or not even government, but law enforcement related agencies. It's a wonderful event.
And you've been doing this, it kind of is always around 9/11 time, because there is a component there that not only are we seeing what you all do to protect us, but we get to honor you for being the first responders and the keepers of the peace. So we can always remember that around 9/11 time. It's our chance to come out and say thank you also to everybody who's serving. So.
Well, yes, we appreciate that. But yeah, and that was the original intent. It was done in September, coinciding with the week of 9/11. We want, and the agencies that are here, just want to educate the public. Let them see what's going on. There'll be cars, probably motorcycle, a Humvee maybe. At this point, the planning stage is there's so much planning going on with it. But there'll be a lot of vehicles to see, a lot of police officers to meet, a lot of police officers to talk to. One wonderful thing that we do every year is canine demonstrations. And we will probably have at least 5 again, probably 3 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. And we'll be publicizing the times for the demonstrations. And they'll be held inside the mall in one of the courtyards. And it's amazing. If you've never seen a police dog in action during one of their training things, it's a wonderful demonstration. And we'll have a lot of people that'll be congregating on the floor and also up on the second level watching down. It'll be quite an atmosphere for those demonstrations.
Yeah, and everything, it's in the mall, so you're there, it's free. It's not like you have to buy a ticket to come in and see all these people doing stuff. Come over to the mall and just, you get to touch the vehicles and talk to the officers and see some of the technology.
Absolutely. It's absolutely free. Come on over in the morning, stay for lunch, stay for the demonstrations in the afternoon, and then have dinner.
Well, and I know you always have more information online, especially as it gets closer to the date. Then you can have like exact times, and little special things that are coming up so people can go online and see that. But we just want to make sure they have 9th and 10th on the calendar for September 9th and 10th.
Absolutely. And a big thank you to everybody at Hawthorne Mall, the security people, the management, the engineering people. Naturally, this is not just the Vernon Hills Police Department. We coordinate the event and organize it, but it would be impossible to do without everybody in the mall, opening their doors when those cars go in on Friday night.
Well, I was going to say that's probably a show in itself to watch you try to get everything, all those different vehicles and all the different communities, getting themselves over here and getting their vehicles over here to stage for the weekend. So that's quite a thing.
That is also something that shows the commitment on the agencies that are here. You forget that once the cars go in, and the cars actually will congregate probably in this very parking lot we're in right now, and about 9:15, maybe 9:30 on Friday of the event, on the 8th, they all go in. And it is quite a show. We'll have a lot of people just standing and watching as the cars go in. And most of the agencies that have done this have done it before. They know the drill, and it is a process that is over before you even blink an eye. The cars are all in there. They know exactly where to go and exactly what they have to do. But the cars stay in there all weekend. And a big thank you to all the agencies that do participate with the car, or even without a car. But those that bring a car, that car can't get out of the mall till Sunday afternoon when the mall closes. And then they all come out in the same order they went in. And it's a commitment for agencies to be without those vehicles free for an entire weekend.
Well, it's educational, it's informative, the kids love it, it's entertaining for the kids and everybody else, so make plans to come over for that. And say thank you to everybody who's doing this and working on our behalf, so thank you for that. That's the Law Enforcement Exhibition, September 9th and 10th.
See you then.
Well, and before we go though, let's talk about one more thing. Since we're standing in the mall parking lot, one thing that we always talk around town, we've got all these cars around us, keep your cars locked at all times. If you're shopping, even if you're running into the store for a minute, keep your car locked, keep everything out of sight. If you're at home, keep your car locked.
Let's expand that, Lynn. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Let's expand. It's not just shopping, but whether you're home, you live in an apartment area, you live in a townhouse area, you live in a single-family residential area, it doesn't matter. Please get the valuables out of your vehicle and lock your vehicle up. And get the garage door opener. Don't leave it sitting there because that makes your home vulnerable. We did have some vehicles stolen from Vernon Hills not too long ago, and in both those, in one of those cases anyway, the keys was actually in the vehicle, the fob. And this is not just something that a Vernon Hills problem. There have been a lot of vehicle thefts throughout the Chicago area. And in a lot of those cases, keys and fobs are just sitting in the vehicles.
And it seems like it's an organized thing. We hear it from all the towns. People are going through, checking all the doors, seeing if they can get in. If they can, they see what they can find. If they can grab your garage door opener, if they can grab your keys, you're vulnerable.
Yeah, whether they're getting into your car, looking for an open vehicle, and then ransacking it and finding the fob, or whether they're getting in looking for a fob and ransacking the vehicle, it doesn't matter. Your car is still being victimized. Hopefully, it's bad enough that items of value that you leave sitting out on the seat, on the dashboard, anything of value, hide it, lock it, take it out, do something with it. Don't leave it in the car where it's a temptation. And sometimes, if you leave things in, that can lead to the crime of actually vehicle theft.
Yeah, you see that if something looks like it might be worth the time, it'll be worth the time. So keep everything out of sight, keep everything locked up, keep our houses locked up, just be safe. This is a very safe community, but do all those little extra things so you just don't have the problems later.
Absolutely, thank you.
Excellent. So that's the safety tip of the day. That goes all the time, whether you're at the mall or you're at home. And then again, once more, we say thank you for putting together the law enforcement exhibition, and we will see you there. That's going to be great.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much, and come by the Vernon Hills Police Department display and say hi.
Well, we are at Century Park, and it is wild over here because we're actually taping right before summer sale starts, but we're with Vernon Hills Park District's Jack Shearer to talk about Little Bear Rib Fest, which is another great thing coming up on August 18th and 19th. August 18th and 19th will be another big party, but I guess before we talk about that party, think about how this setup is and the partnerships that had to go on to make Summer Sell go this year. If you're watching this in August, you may have forgotten all those rains, and hopefully your basement's dried out, but everybody had to work together, like Public Works, Park District, volunteers, everybody, police department, everybody put in a lot of extra time, and it's great over here.
Definitely, yep. We've been out here the past couple of days, and most of it, the village setting up, and we checking on the land. Everything was underwater here earlier, but it's receding now, and the festival this weekend is going to go great, yeah.
So when we think about that, let's talk about partnerships, because you guys all do work together. We call on everybody to take part. And so when we come back on August 18th and 19th for Little Bear Rib Fest, it's the same thing. It's like everybody bands together to make sure we have a lot of fun.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Little Bear Rib Fest coming up. That's a Vernon Hills Park District thing. How long have you been doing this? It seems like it's been just something we're used to now.
Yeah, this will be the 7th year that we've been doing it.
And it is at Century Park, but it is a little different than Summer Celebration. Let's talk to people about, you use the tagline, cooking up a mix of blues, brews, and barbecues. So it's a little bit more adult.
Yeah, that's what we have here, the blues, brews, and barbecues. We don't have the rides or anything, but we focus on the music, and it's a really good time out here.
Exactly, and I know, there's a $5 at the gate. Under 5 are free, but that $5 goes to Vernon Hills Park District programs, which you do a lot of things, community, preschool, and all those people you help through that.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so it's a festival that we get some good back to the community. Yeah. So let's talk about barbecue first. You've got all the favorites coming back.
Right. Yep. We've got Real Urban Barbecue from Vernon Hills. Barbecued Productions is coming back. Smoking Teas. Mostly local people. We do have a new vendor this year, Superb Grill, at Round Lake, so that'll be very exciting for them to join us here. Yeah.
So when you come through, it's like a food court of barbecue. There's ribs, there's sandwiches, there's brisket, and you can just go through and sample everything. We got some award winners there. I know you like to tell people plates cost, if a meal is probably going to be about $25.
Yeah, it depends on how hungry you are. You just want a sandwich, you can get away with a little less, but you want the full slab and some sides, it's going to be about $25.
Okay, Bring your money and bring your appetite for that. And then there's also a refreshment tent, beverages. Too.
Yep. We'll have the beer tent, beer tickets for sale before that. Wristbands required, of course.
Okay, those typical drill. And again, no kids rides, but the key is the music, and it's the blues and that kind of thing. Let's talk about what you got on schedule.
Yeah, so Friday night we've got a couple Chicago guys. Billy Flynn's opening for us, and then Lori Bell following him. Saturday, just as normal, the Red, White, and Blues band is opening for us at 5 p.m. and then followed by Laura Rain and the Caesars from up in Detroit. And returning to the Ribfest stage for the third time, formally and trampled underfoot, is now Danielle Nicole Band. She's gone off on her own, and we're really excited to have her back.
Well, she was. They all are, but she was really a fan favorite for Ribfest. She's kind of a thing.
Very good. Yeah, she's got a great voice. I listen to her.
Excellent. So, and when you think about that, that's another place where you pay your $5 to get in. Then you can eat, you can drink, and you can. For $5, you have a whole evening of blues of high quality. It's the kind. Some of the blues is out of Chicago. Some of it's a little further afield, but awesome music.
Yep, it's great. Come here and relax, enjoy some blues, brews, and barbecues.
There you go. We'll have to remember that. So now, and we do have a few things. It's like typical like Summer Sell. No carry-ins of your own food, no smoking, no pets unless it's a service animal. But so you are trying to keep it to be a family-friendly environment.
Right. It is family-friendly.
And parking, just like Summer Sell, you can go over to the mall and get over here?
Yep, we'll have a shuttle coming from the mall over at Hawthorne Mall.
Okay, so you got free parking, free shuttle. You don't get that downtown in Chicago, so there you go. There you go. Well, you can do it right here at home. So if people want more information, I know you've got a lot of information online. You can look at that schedule. You can pull it up. You can see what's going on. You can look at even the different people that are sponsors, because you've got a lot of great sponsors.
Yeah, our website, vhparkdistrict.org. We have a Ribfest tab right on the front page. All the information is there for you.
Okay, so let's remind everybody, it's a Friday, Saturday, August 18th and 19th at the Century Park over here on Big Bear Lake. Is a beautiful spot, so it's going to be another great time. So thanks for putting it all together for us.
Thanks, Lynn.
Well, that wraps up this edition of the Vernon Hills Update. If you have comments or suggestions, please contact Mike Storto at 847-918-3560 or email mikes@vhills.org. Thank you for tuning into the Vernon Hills Update.